Texas football takes the field for the first time in 2018, Texas baseball continues to build its tournament resume, and we look at where the top Longhorns will be taken in the NFL draft. All this and more coming up next on College Press Box. Welcome into College Press Box, the most comprehensive sports show on the 40 acres. I'm your host, Thomas Fitch, joined by Daniel Shih.
Well, Texas football is back, at least to the eyes of some Texas football diehards, as the annual Texas Spring Game took place at the DKR Stadium last Saturday. Let's head down to the field for the highlights. So Tom Herman's crew is back in public eye. Shane Buechele and Colin Johnson talk about some tactics, but Buechele will be looking for some wide receivers in the end zone and will find his good friend Colin Johnson.
Yeah, and this play is made possible by two things: good blocking up front by the line, giving Buechele time, and good veteran move by Colin Johnson to make the cut out there.
Allinger will try to tie this game up, finds little Jordan Humphreys. He will be just shy of the goal.
Yeah, but little Jordan's going to punch it in here. Little Jordan Humphrey doing things in the air and on the ground. He would finish with 114 total all-purpose yards.
The stadium will come back to life. And Casey Thompson, the true freshman quarterback, showing off some speed.
Yeah, that's some mobility we haven't seen since guys like Gerard Hurd and Tyrone Swoops were taking the quarterback job.
And then the offense will just lit up the fourth quarter as both Orange and White will trade up touchdowns, and Orange will lose to the White team 13-23. For more on the spring game, here's our very own Madison Hager.
The Orange and White spring game gave Longhorns an exciting glimpse into the 2018 season. The Orange and White teams battled it out to see who would reign in the spring. The defense performed well and alluded to another season of strength. Seniors such as Chris Boyd played well in their last spring game. The coaches were also impressed with the defensive line.
Yeah, our front seven, whoa. We got a chance to be pretty good up there.
The 2018 Orange-White spring game revealed key players in the offense, such as the quarterbacks, Lil Jordan Humphrey and Colin Johnson.
The veteran and rookie quarterbacks showcased their strengths in the spring game.
I thought Sam looked good tonight. I thought both veteran quarterbacks looked good. I'm really happy with those newcomers, man. They do not look out of place. You know, the two young quarterbacks, you could tell they were a little bit nervous that first drive. As you saw them get more comfortable, they made some really, really good throws.
Quarterbacks are doing great, growing. Casey hit me on a deep ball today, so that was fun. And watching Cam play too was really fun.
Colin Johnson had some impressive catches and revealed his athleticism.
His skill set is so unique. What does Colin do as good as anybody in the country? It's defeat one-on-one coverage.
While Colin Johnson stood out on the Orange team, Lil Jordan Humphrey dominated on the White team.
LJ is definitely going to take off. I love having a guy like that on my team. You know, we make each other better.
LJ is about as versatile an offensive skill player as I've ever been around. He can play outside, he can play in the slot, he can carry the football, but a difference maker without a doubt.
Tight end Andrew Beck had good things to say about the team's spring improvements.
I think up front we've come a really long way. Our defense is only getting better, and they've always been good. Seeing the two quarterbacks battle has been a lot of fun. We got a lot of playmakers.
The Longhorns' first game of the 2018 season is against Maryland on September 1st.
I feel a lot better than I did this time last year, and feel a lot better than I did in December.
From DKR, I'm Madison Hager with TSTV Sports.
Thomas and I are joined by our football analyst Nick Kucholtz. But since both of you are experts, this is out for both of you. Do you see a lot of improvements from this team than last year's? Nick, we're going to start with you first.
I think just after the spring game, still over 4 months till this next season begins, it's hard to tell right now where Texas will improve immensely, at least. I think one position group I expect the most from as far as improvement goes is the offensive line. Coach Tom Herman brought in Herb Hand this past offseason to fill up his coaching assistant spot, the final one. And really, I say they need to improve because of how inconsistent and how much they struggled last season in all sorts of different areas. I think Derek Kerstetter now has another year of experience instead of having to come in as a true freshman. Patrick Vahe will be a senior to help lead him, as well as Zach Shackelford's another veteran now. He's entering his junior season. So from the offensive line, that's where I expect Texas to improve a lot in this 2018 season.
Yeah, you mentioned experience. Texas only losing one starter offensively from last season, obviously being Connor Williams. But those guys, as well as Shane Buechele and Sam Ellinger, whichever of them gets the start, has a whole nother year of experience under their belt. And Coach Herman said that they've made a lot of developments and improvements in the spring practice. But also defensively, that's where Texas lost a lot of guys. You know, you bring in a bunch of good freshman recruits, and in the spring game, all the defenders who are kind of stepping up in the spots of Holton Hill, Deshaun Elliott, Malik Jefferson, all looked really talented. So I think we can see a lot of improvement this season.
Well, obviously the spring games are for teams to showcase their strengths, but their weaknesses are exposed as well. For both of you, do you see any strengths or weaknesses that stood out to you? We're going to go with Nick first again.
Well, as far as strengths go, I think it's very obvious to see the strongest point of this Texas football team, and it's the wide receiver group. You have an absolute stud in Colin Johnson, 6'6", 220 pounds. Any offensive coordinator in the country would lose their mind if they had a guy as talented as Colin Johnson. Texas really needs to utilize him as much as they can. Lil Jordan Humphrey, I think, is the second best one on this team. He's also 220 pounds, 6'4", a tiny bit shorter than Johnson is. Those two are incredible, but then you look at the speedsters who can come in at the Z spot, inside receiver. Senior Gerard Hurd's a good one. Devin Duvernay, they've got to get going with that speed. You have to use him as much as you can. Two names to look out for, too, Davion Curtis and Jordan Pouncey. Those two guys, I think, can have a big impact on this team, but definitely the biggest strength is that wide receiver group.
Yeah, when you look at weaknesses, it's definitely the run game. You look at combined Daniel Young, Tennille Carter, Kyle Porter, 46 yards on 15 carries. That's just terrible production. Carter also had a fumble, and he struggled with that last year. And I'm not sure if this is more of a struggle because of lack of just quality running backs or if just the offensive line is struggling more. But you are bringing in Calvin Anderson, the offensive lineman, the grad transfer, and Keontae Ingram, who's coming in out of high school this summer. So I think that'll definitely help that aspect of the game, but a lot of struggles early on in the spring game.
Well, Tom Herman has stated many, many times throughout the spring that he feels much more comfortable this year. He has much more confidence in the team. Going into next year, who do you think will improve the most?
I think, looking at the spring game, it has to be Jeffrey McCullough. He finished with 4 tackles, 3 of them were sacks, but more than just that, it felt like just about every play he was in the backfield, or similar to Malik Jefferson, he has that athletic ability to just be in one place in the field and find the ball on the other side and go and chase the guy down and make the tackle. Also a good job by Todd Orlando drawing up blitzes and using him to get that pressure. So I think we can see a big growth from him.
I'm staying on defense, but I'm going defensive line. I think Charles Amina, will take the biggest step. He's improved in every area so far from freshman to sophomore to junior season a little bit, but I think this year, and it has to be his breakout year in his senior season at Texas, he himself wants to improve his draft stock. And this Texas defensive line, if Coach Todd Orlando wants to duplicate the success that he and the defensive 11 had this past season, they're going to need Charles Amina to have a big year.
All right, coming back, we are going to take a look at Texas baseball, faring with a rare opponent from New Orleans. Stay tuned. We have a new championship team on the 40 acres, don't we, Thomas?
That's right. The women's golf team took home the Big 12 title for the second consecutive season over the weekend in Dallas. The team was led by Emily Hoffman, Caitlin Papp, and Sophia Schubert, who all finished in the top 10, earning them all Big 12 honors. The seventh-ranked Longhorns will host an NCAA regional from May 7th to 9th at the UT Golf Club.
We've been working so hard this season, and this is what we work for, and it's just a great feeling to win back-to-back with my team.
It was just a team effort, fantastic. We had a great team last year. We probably have a better team this year, in all honesty, if you just look at the numbers, stroke averages, rankings, top to bottom. Our top 5 can compete with anybody in the country.
On Sunday, the Longhorns men's tennis team concluded their regular season with a 4-0 win against number 23 ranked Baylor. The Longhorns began the match by taking the doubles point, in large part thanks to an impressive win by sophomore Christian Segard and junior Harrison Scott at first doubles, with a 6-2 win against Baylor's duo of Jonas Stretter and Will Little, who are currently ranked 9th in the country in doubles. Singles matches were won by Scott and Adrian Ortiz. With the win, the Longhorns finished the regular season with a 15-6 record and clinched a first-round bye in the Big 12 tournament. Their first match of the tournament for the Longhorns will be in the semifinals on Saturday.
The women's tennis team took home the Big 12 regular season conference title on Friday with a 4-0 sweep of Baylor. After taking the doubles point and winning the first two singles matches, the match was clinched by none other than Bianca Tirati, the #1 ranked women's singles player in the country. The regular season conference title was the first outright win of the conference for the Longhorns since 2004. The Longhorns have now won 14 straight matches as they head into the Big 12 championships, which is set to begin on Thursday at the Texas Tennis Center.
Texas softball faced number 19 Oklahoma State at McCombs Field last weekend. The Oklahoma State Cowgirls would hand the Longhorns their first conference series loss this season. The Horns offense would struggle throughout the weekend as they scored a total of just 5 runs in 3 games. But Texas's pitching performed well and kept the games close, especially in Game 1 when they handed the Cowgirls a shutout. Texas now drops to 3rd in conference with a 10-3 conference record. The Lady Horns will face Texas Southern on Wednesday at home, then will head to Norman for a 3-game series against Oklahoma.
The Longhorns took on New Orleans this past weekend in Austin and earned the series win. On Friday, Texas won 8-6 as Cody Clemens got things started for the Horns with a 2-run home run. Along with Duke Ellis and Zach Zubia, that trio powered a comeback to win that game. Saturday, the Longhorns jumped out to an early 2-run lead, thanks in part to Mason Hibbler and Andy McGuire. After that, it was all pitcher Chase Shugart. He went 7 2/3 innings of 1-run baseball and gave Texas the 3-1 win. On Sunday, neither the Texas offense or defense could get anything going. The offense only mustered a Ryan Reynolds solo home run, and the defense had 2 errors that led to 4 unearned runs. That ended up being just the difference, as the Longhorns couldn't erase the deficit and would lose 4-1. The Longhorns next take on the University of Houston on Tuesday at home at 6:30 p.m. on Longhorn Network. Here, David Pierce is sharing his thoughts on tomorrow's matchup.
Well, you know, we're right in the middle of building a resume, and we're right in the middle of mid-April baseball. So we're excited that we're going to get another opportunity to get this bitter taste out of our mouth. They've got a doubleheader against Wichita State today, so they're playing very well. And if we don't play well, we won't win.
I'm joined by our baseball analyst, Sean Mapes. Now, Sean, how do you rate this Texas season so far? And is this resume that David Pierce was referencing enough for Texas to host the regionals?
Well, first off, I think this season, the overall record might be similar to what it was last season, but I think the major improvement has come in conference play. Going from 11-12 in conference, now they're at 11-4 already against Big 12 competition. And the losses they do have are early in the season, but they're against better teams than them. Teams like Stanford, who's the #2 ranked team in the nation. I think they can hang with teams that are about the same skill level as them, and maybe a little bit better. I mean, because last week they had 4 rivalry games against OU. They had 3 games, they won 2 of them, and then they lost their game against A&M. That's 2-2 against two really good teams. I mean, those are teams that are going to be the kind of teams that you face in the postseason. I think this team is really coming into form at the right time. I mean, this week they did just beat New Orleans and Texas Southern, and then they played UT Rio Grande Valley. So there's not a lot you can take. These are all teams they should beat. But I think the real test going to be coming next weekend, or this week against UH. That's a good team. But they're going to play at Lubbock, play Texas Tech, the best team I think in the Big 12. So. Right now, I'd say it's unlikely that they host a regional. Talking about their resume, I don't see it the same way. Maybe talk to me next week after they beat Texas Tech, or in a couple weeks after they beat Texas Tech. Maybe take 2 of them in Lubbock. I think then they'll have a legitimate chance at, a legitimate case at hosting a regional. But right now I just don't see it.
I agree. They have TCU and Texas Tech coming up, which are both very good opponents.
Absolutely.
But as we mentioned, the Horns will face Houston tomorrow, actually, at the Dish. What do you think will be the key for Texas to pull off a win against its in-state opponent?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, these two teams are very similar. They have similar records. UH is coming in hot. They swept number 24 Wichita State this past weekend behind the bat of Grayson Padgett. He was the AAC Player of the Week this year. But overall, I think the Cougars will have some trouble against the Longhorns on Tuesday because the main difference is that the game, the series that they played against Wichita State was in Houston. Mm-hmm. This game's going to be in Austin, and U of H is 21-4 at home and only 4-8 on the road. I think that really plays in Texas' hands. Obviously, Texas is also a better home team than they are a road team. So your Texas is playing at a position of strength. Houston at a position of weakness. I think that if the Texas gets the consistent production that they have been getting out of guys like David Hamilton and Cody Clemens, I think Texas should definitely win this game. They should expect to win this one.
Stick around, Sean. You have to break down the NFL draft for us. And also, happy birthday. Right, that's right. Nick and Sean and Thomas will dissect the NFL draft. Stay tuned.
Welcome back into College Press Box. This is Unhooked NFL Draft Edition. Beginning this Thursday in Arlington, Texas, some of the nation's best young athletes will await to hear their name called by Roger Goodell. There's plenty of hype surrounding this year's draft, most notably the debate over which quarterback will be taken first. Meanwhile, there's a handful of former Longhorns such as Connor Williams, Malik Jefferson, and Michael Dixon hoping to be selected as early as possible. I'm joined by our NFL analysts, Sean Mapes and Nick Kucholtz, to break down this draft. So let's start off with your first round mock draft. Sean, who do you have going number 1 to the Cleveland Browns?
Number 1 pick, Cleveland Browns. They're going to pick Sam Darnold, the quarterback out of USC. Every other quarterback has major red flags, major negatives surrounding them on the field, off the field. Sam Darnold's the only one that doesn't have as much. He turned the ball over a little bit too much in college, but I think he's still the safest pick at number 1 for the Browns.
Sam Darnold, number 1. Who's going number 2 to the Giants?
If Cleveland goes quarterback at 1, which I agree with Sean, I think they do. I think the Giants are crazy if they do not draft Saquon Barkley, the running back out of Penn State. Unbelievable runner, but he can also line up at receiver too and make a lot of plays. He's an elite player on special teams, kickoff and punt returns. And again, like I said, if the Giants still have Barkley available at number 2, I don't know how they don't draft.
From New York Giants to the New York Jets at number 3. Who do they take?
Yeah, the Jets, they traded a lot of picks. This was originally the Colts pick. They traded a lot of picks to get up here, and teams only do that for quarterback. I have them taking Josh Rosen. Again, they trade a lot of picks to get up there. They need a quarterback. It seems like it's been forever they've been looking for a quarterback. Since the days of Mark Sanchez, they've been looking for a quarterback. I think Josh Rosen has a chance to become one of the best players in this draft. He has some flaws, has some, guys don't know where his head's at, but I think it all works out. I think he's a great pick here at number 3 for the Jets.
Speaking of trades, the Browns last year traded with the Texans, so they have the not just number 1 but number 4 pick. So who do they go with at number 4?
Well, we know they're getting offense at number 1, whether it be a quarterback or Saquon Barkley, which means they're going defense at number 4. I like Bradley Chubb, defensive end from NC State, 2 consecutive seasons of 10 or more sacks and 20 or more tackles for loss. Also an elite pass rusher. It's not a heavy draft class when it comes to front 7 guys. The defensive studs and big prospects are in the secondary, but Chubb is by far the best front 7 guy in this 2018 draft.
At the 5th draft pick is the Denver Broncos. Broncos looking to finally replace Peyton Manning, who's been retired for a couple years. Do they finally go for a quarterback, and do they answer that?
I think they do. I mean, they signed Case Keenum, but I don't think he's a long-term solution. I think they can still draft a quarterback, and I think they will draft Josh Allen. He's raw. He needs time to develop, but he can sit behind Keenum. That's the good part. I'm not so sure about him. He has a big arm, and we're also putting him in high altitude, so the ball will even go even farther. He can throw it even faster. I think he'll bust. I don't believe in Josh Allen, but NFL teams love him. 5 to the Broncos.
So 3 quarterbacks that y'all have going in the top 5. At 6, who do you have going to the Colts?
Yeah,
Nick?
Sean's taking all the quarterbacks. Indy needs help on the offensive line. I'm going with Quentin Nelson, the guard out of Notre Dame. They're comparing him to Zach Martin already, offensive lineman for the Cowboys, multiple Pro Bowler already. Nelson is a great running blocker, whereas in the pass block game, he still has a lot of work to do. NFL teams are a little worried about that, but not enough to overshadow the skill he brings to the table. He'd be a huge offensive line fit for Indianapolis.
Yeah, number 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who do they go with?
Well, their offense, you think they're figured out. You know, they have Jameis, they have Mike Evans. I think the focus should be on defense. I think they go Denzel Ward. He's the best cover corner in the draft. Took Hargraves last year. Their pass defense last year was really bad. I think Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. I think he's the solution. Put him at corner, shut that side of the field down.
Moving on to the Chicago Bears with the 8th pick. Nick, who do they go with?
We've talked a lot about guys so far in our first 7 picks. It's kind of the best available, who's the best, regardless of position. But I think Chicago goes with a good fit here in linebacker Roquan Smith from Georgia. He's the most well-rounded linebacker in the draft, very versatile, and he can change direction so quickly. Within Chicago's defensive scheme, he's a perfect fit. I'd be surprised if he's still there at 8 and Chicago doesn't pick him.
We head out west to round out the top 10. At number 9, the San Francisco 49ers. Who do they pick?
Yeah, they picked up Richard Sherman this offseason. They picked up Garoppolo last year. So there's not, for a team picking number 9, they're in a pretty good spot. I have them picking Minka Fitzpatrick out of Alabama. He's the most versatile player probably in this draft. He can play corner. He can play safety. He might be the best corner in the draft. He might be the best safety in the draft. I think they can move him all around the field. They spent a lot of picks last couple of years on the defensive front, picking linemen, DeForest Buckner, and Eric Armstead. I think now they go defensive backfields, Minka Fitzpatrick.
Finally, the Oakland Raiders. Nick, who do they take to round out the top 10?
Sean mentioned Minka Fitzpatrick, Denzel Ward. I think at number 10, the player to pick for the Oakland Raiders is Derwin James, the safety from Florida State. I think there's a very possible chance he's actually better than Fitzpatrick and Ward. He could be the best, not only the best secondary player in this draft, not only the best defensive player in this draft, but there's a chance he's the best overall player in this draft. NFL teams really like what he brings to the table, very versatile, and he can help Oakland in the secondary immediately.
Let's move on to predictions for the Longhorns. First up, Connor Williams, who had success his first 2 years, earning freshman All-American and All-American honors, but was injured most of last season, and when he played, kind of struggled. So in light of this, Sean, where do you see him ending up?
I think there's better prospects at the top of the draft on the offensive line. So I think he moves down to like late first round. The Seahawks, they have a hole at offensive line at 18. Panthers at 24, Vikings at 30. I think those are the likely landing spots in the first round. If he makes it a second, he won't be there long. You have the Browns, you have the Colts, and you have the Giants all picking in the top 3 in the second round. So I don't think he falls very far. And plus, you ask any fan of any team, they say they need offensive line help. He'll find a home in the first 2 rounds without doubt.
Yeah, very true. Unlike Connor Williams, Malik Jefferson came to Texas with all the hype. He's been named the unofficial mayor of Austin. However, Williams, like Williams, he also produced on the field, earning second-team All-American honors this past season. An incredible athlete, but with question marks around his playmaking abilities. Nick, does he find a way into the top 2 rounds?
I don't think he goes top 2. I'm fairly confident he'll be drafted in the 3rd round. NFL teams are worried about a couple things in Malik. First is his pass coverage, and he struggled with that since the day he got to the University of Texas 3 years ago. On top of that, he tackles a little bit high, but that's something they can fix pretty quickly once he gets to the NFL. And third and finally, his man-to-man coverage is something he's needed to work on his entire career as well. But that doesn't overshadow, again, the skills that he brings to the table. He's a very fast linebacker. He's natural in space. His best trait is probably his pass rushing ability, absolutely so quick and fast off of the edge. But if I'm an NFL GM or head coach, I think my favorite trait about Malik Jefferson is the fact that he can play strong, middle, and weak side linebacker, and he has experience in all 3 of those positions. So when he gets to the NFL, whatever team he ends up on, surely you have to love it as a coach or a general manager. Hey, I have a guy that's not only capable of playing all the different linebacker positions, but that he has multiple years of experience in them too.
Yeah, a lot of talented Longhorn players in this draft, but out of all of them, none grabbed the hearts of the fans as much as the punter, Michael Dixon. In his phenomenal junior season, Dixon made history, becoming the first Longhorn to win the Ray Guy Award as Punter of the Year, and following Texas's victory in the Texas Bowl, became the third punter ever to be MVP of a bowl game. Obviously very talented, but Sean, just how high can he be taken in this draft?
So traditionally, last 10 years, punters start going in the 5th round. Very rarely do they go ahead of that. Last time it happened was 2012. Punter Brian Anger was picked in the 3rd round, 70th pick overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars. That didn't really work out that well, so I think teams are going to be a little gun shy. I mean, it's 5, maybe 6 years later, and he's not on the Jags anymore. So that's not what you're looking for when you draft any player in the 3rd round, especially a punter. You're wanting to get a knockout punter. And so I think teams are going to be a little more gun shy at this time. But I think Michael Dixon's overall talent, just how good he is, I think if you're watching the draft just to see Michael Dixon get drafted, watch the 4th round and 5th round, because that's probably where he'll go. He won't fall past the 5th round. He might go as high in the 4th round. He's that good.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us. Great analysis. When we come back, we're looking ahead to the coming week in Longhorn sports and at some exciting track and field news. Welcome back into College Press Box. Thanks again for joining us on your Monday night. On Thursday, the athletic department announced that they would be the host of the 2019 and 2020 NCAA Track and Field Championships. It's the first time since 2004 that the school has hosted the event. This will go alongside the Clyde Littlefield Texas Relays and the UIL State Championships as the biggest events hosted at the Mike A. Myers Field.
Former Texas Women's Basketball Associate head coach Tina Thompson had joined the Virginia Cavaliers as a head coach. Virginia's athletic director announced Thompson's addition to their coaching staff on April 16th. Coach Thompson joined Texas in May 2015 and helped coach Aston brought Texas to 2 Sweet 16 appearances and 1 Elite 8 appearance. The Longhorns were 84-21 during Thompson's tenure on the 40 acres.
This week in Longhorn sports, from today on to Wednesday, men's golf is currently competing at the Big 12 Championships in Oklahoma. Baseball takes on Houston tomorrow night at 6:30. That'll be on Longhorn Network. And then Friday through Saturday, they're traveling up to Morgantown where they will face off against the West Virginia Mountaineers. Softball faces Texas Southern this Wednesday at 6 p.m. That as well will be on the Longhorn Network. And they travel up to Norman, Oklahoma this Friday through Saturday for a series against the Sooners. Tennis, both men's and women's, will be hosting the Big 12 Championships from Friday to Sunday.
That is it for this episode of College Press Box. Don't forget to catch our sister show, College Crossfire, this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central, as 3 TSTV alumni are back on the 40 acres to join Mark Skoll Jr. and debate on the hottest topics in Texas sports. From everybody here in the studio and Master Control, thanks for spending your Monday night with us. Until next time, I'm Daniel Shih along with Thomas Fitch. Have a wonderful evening.